Welcome to the Man of Recaps. This is House of the Dragon, Season 2. It's a succession crisis in House Targaryen between its two lines, the Greens and the Blacks. The Greens currently control the Iron Throne in King's Landing, led by the young king Aegon Targaryen, and green is the color of his mother's house, the Hightowers. Team Black is Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, black being the actual Targaryen color. Rhaenyra was always her father the king's designated heir, but Hand of the King, Otto Hightower, using the precedent that the line of succession skips over women, crowned his own grandson Aegon instead. This was supposed to be a smooth transition, where without support from the rest of Westeros, Rhaenyra would have no choice but to accept it. But Aegon's eye-patch brother, Aemond Targaryen, whose general vibe is anime villain, he got a bit overzealous last season and killed one of Rhaenyra's sons. A grieving Rhaenyra wants Aemond killed in retaliation, which means it's time for her uncle husband, Daemon Targaryen, to put back on his murder hoodie. He sneaks into King's Landing and hires a rat catcher to assassinate Aemond, but they can't find Aemond's bedroom, and so they figure a son for a son, any Targaryen prince will do. Yeah, this is their sister Helaena, and in classic Targaryen fashion, she and Aegon are married. You may remember Helaena is kind of an oddball who loves insects, and everything she says is super weird, but turns out to be prophetically true. These assassins force her to point out which of the twins is the son, and they kill this little kid, Season 2 starting off real grim. They have a big public funeral blaming Rhaenyra, making her look like the bad guy. But Rhaenyra's like, what? I didn't do this, right, Daemon? And Daemon's like, well, it's not my fault. I specifically told them the one with the eye patch. Rhaenyra and Daemon have a blowout fight. It's like, look, I can't trust you. You're too much of a loose cannon. And in true loose cannon style, he decides to fly off in his dragon to win this war on his own. And Aegon wants to retaliate, get this war kicked off for real, but his grandpa Otto Hightower always counsels patience and restraint. In fact, every time Aegon has a good idea, his grandpa has to shut him down, cause his ideas are bad. So sliding in to befriend the king is Larys Strong, Alicent Hightower's longtime unofficial spy master and foot admirer. He manipulates the king by telling him not to let his grandpa manipulate him. So Aegon's like, hey Gramps, you're cramping my style, and fires him as Hand of the King. He names his new hand a man of action, commander of the Kingsguard, Criston Cole. Criston Cole has been having a secret affair with Alicent, which makes him a huge hypocrite. He hates Rhaenyra because he blames her for ruining his honor by seducing him last season, but it's okay for him and Alicent to bang, so massive douchebag. His bright idea is to send Sir Eric to assassinate Rhaenyra, and he'll be able to infiltrate the castle because his identical twin brother Sir Eric sided with her. But imposter Eric was spotted by Miss Arya, who you may remember was Daemon's paramour, who then became the White Worm, a spy master in King's Landing. She warns the other Eric in time for an identical twins fight to the death, which is tragic because they did love each other and the victor kills themselves. Now Aegon is bored of messing around, it's time to get this civil war started. But Rhaenyra still wants to avoid war if possible, she knows it would plunge the country into chaos. So now she sneaks into King's Landing for a chat with her old best friend, Alicent. It's like, yo girl, I know we've grown apart, but I can't believe you conspired to steal my throne. But Alicent believes she did the right thing. On his deathbed, King Viserys changed his mind and said Aegon should be king. But Rhaenyra realizes he was talking about their ancestor, Aegon the Conqueror, because of the whole prophecy, the Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, that's what they get for naming every Targaryen such similar names. Alicent's like, well, that's my bad, but it's too late now, we're kinda committed. Criston Cole gets a dumb-looking haircut and leads the king's forces to war. It's a race to occupy Harrenhal, the big castle right in the middle of Westeros, and Daemon Targaryen gets there first, flying in on his dragon, Noodleneck. He conquers Harrenhal single-handedly because there's no one here but this one old dude. It's technically Larys Strong's castle, but he doesn't live there because remember Harrenhal is a ruin. And in fact, it's said to be cursed, as Daemon learns from this creepy witch lady, Alice Rivers. So Daemon spends this entire season in his own trippy horror movie as he's having bad dreams about his brother, King Viserys. Daemon always wanted to be king, and he's being intentionally vague on if he's raising this army for Rhaenyra or for himself. But raising his army proves to be difficult. The Lord Paramount of the Riverlands is an old man on his deathbed, and his young grandson can't take actions until his grandpa actually dies. But there are two smaller Riverland houses ready to fight, the ancient rivals Blackwood and Bracken. So Daemon gives Lord Blackwood permission to attack the Brackens and unite the Riverlands in his name. But this ends up backfiring because Blackwood committed a bunch of war crimes, so Daemon just united the Riverlands against himself. But Criston Cole doesn't go to Harrenhal, he attacks a small castle on the coast, which is a strategic location for Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra must send a dragon to defend it, her Aunt Rhaenys volunteers, and so it's finally happening, a dragon goes to war! But she flew right into their trap, because hiding nearby is Aemond Targaryen with his massive dragon Vhagar. But now what's this? Another dragon arrives. Yes, King Aegon was fed up with no one respecting him, so he's flown out to prove himself. Of course, all he proves is that he's an idiot because his dragon is significantly smaller. But remember, Aemon's dragon Vhagar is an absolute monster. Hooray, my brother's coming to save me. But for Aemond, this is a fantastic opportunity to become king himself, and he aims his fire at his brother. Oh, Aegon down. Rhaenys has a chance to escape, but badass grandma doesn't retreat. She turns her dragon around, and it's time for a true dragon fight! Yeah, this is what we've been waiting for! But now that we get to see it, it's actually super sad, because dragons are beautiful, majestic animals. And it's an epic death scene for Rhaenys, as her and her dragon are both killed. But King Aegon actually survives, barely, and his mother, Alicent Hightower, is ready to resume her position as regent. But the rest of the council would all prefer a man in charge. Even her boyfriend, Criston Cole, totally ditches her. So her other son, Aemond, is put in charge, and he fully fires her. Rhaenyra also deals with constant sexism as her council mansplains everything to her. Eventually, she has to slap this fool and remind them, I'm queen. So Mysaria becomes her favorite counselor. In fact, they become friends. In fact, they become more than friends, and one night these two make out. So Aemond One Eye now rules in King's Landing, and with his brother's son dead, he's one heartbeat away from being king. And he's no pushover like Aegon was. When Larys Strong tries to manipulate him, he shuts that down immediately. So Larys visits his old friend Aegon, who will be permanently disabled. But he's like, hey bro, I believe in you, and so helps him through his physical therapy. So with the war finally underway, Aemond calls up his allies, like the Game of Thrones classic, the Lannisters. And up in the north, we finally meet a Stark. It's Rhaenyra's son Jace who visits them and gets the Starks on their side. The Riverlands are still undeclared, but now Old Lord Tully finally dies, and Daemon's like, good, fight for me. But turns out this kid has balls of steel, tells Daemon, you're not the boss of me. So he puts Daemon in his place and makes him execute his former ally. Now all these armies are well and good, but they're not as important as dragons. And with Grandma Rhaenys and her dragon's death, Team Green has the huge advantage. But Jace points out they have dragons. There's a couple big ones living here at Dragonstone. They just don't have Targaryens to ride them. One of her knights has Targaryen ancestry. They figure maybe he can ride a dragon, but the dragon doesn't go for it. But turns out that dragon does want to ride her, and he chases down this random shipwright, Adam. Yeah, remember, Rhaenyra's Hand of the Queen is the sea snake Corlys Velaryon. He's had a bunch of scenes this season with a random sailor, Alan, who we come to realize is his bastard son. Alan doesn't want to get involved in High Lord politics, but his brother Adam always felt he was destined for greatness. And indeed, this dragon, Sea Smoke, sniffed him out, and Adam's now a dragon rider. So Rhaenyra learns that dragon riders need Targaryen blood, but dragons don't care if your parents were married. So she puts out a call for Targaryen bastards and now has a bunch of potential recruits. One of them is the blacksmith Hugh, who had a bunch of scenes with his sick daughter and always had suspicious main character hair. Another is the barfly Ulf, who claimed he was a Targaryen to get free drinks, never thought he'd have to do anything with it. So Rhaenyra brings them all out together to meet her biggest dragon, Vermithor, the Bronze Fury. Rhaenyra doesn't give them any advice, she figures she'll just see what happens. And what happens is the Bronze Fury decides it's time for a big bastard barbecue. But Hugh realizes he needs to show dominance, and so he roars right back at this thing, and Vermithor decides, yeah, this guy's cool. Ulf, meanwhile, tried to run away, but he runs right to the other dragon, Silverwing, and he takes the opposite approach, tries to play dead, which Silverwing, I guess, thinks is hilarious. So Dragon Rider Ulf takes her out for a spin, flies by his old bar to wave at his buddies. Aemond goes to chase him down. Vhagar is still by far the biggest, but when he sees Rhaenyra now has 3 adult dragons, that's too much. He has to turn around, and the balance of power has just shifted. Now, Daemon's daughter, Baela, also has a dragon. It's not full grown yet, but she's been having fun on scouting missions. But her sister, Rhaena, does not have a dragon, so she was sidelined at the Vale, where she's on babysitting duty with Rhaenyra's youngest kids and their baby dragons. But she discovers living in the Vale is a wild dragon, and Rhaena's going to try to claim it. Rhaenyra also has, in theory, Daemon's dragon, Noodleneck, but he's been ghosting her all season, hasn't actually sent a raven, so she finally flies out there in person to be like, yo bro, what's up? Earlier, his new friend Alice Rivers gave Daemon her login to H3O, where he binged all of Game of Thrones. So now understanding that he's just a part of a much bigger story, he kneels to Rhaenyra, accepts her as queen. He can have more fun as a warrior anyway. Team Green has a few more dragons up their sleeves too. Alicent has another son, Daemon, who was raised over at Old Town. Alicent hasn't seen him in years, but her brother says he's a real good guy. And Helaena has a dragon too. Aemond wants to get her to ride it, but she's not interested in fighting. And she's like, bro, I've seen your future. Spoiler alert, you die. Their mother Alicent recognizes this has all gotten way out of hand, so now she goes for a talk with Rhaenyra. These two are really good at sneaking into each other's castles. Now she's interested in making peace. It's like, look, when Aemond flies off to Harrenhal, I'll convince the other counselors to surrender King's Landing to you. But Rhaenyra's like, look, you and Helaena can live, but you made Aegon king, I have to kill him. And Alicent decides he's mostly dead anyway, she can live with that. But Larys Strong kind of saw this coming. He goes to Aegon like, look bro, we gotta bounce. We'll go into hiding while the rest of your family fights it out. Then at the end, you can swoop in and be the hero. And so it's finally happening. The Targaryen Civil War, the Dance of the Dragons, about to really pop off for real. All the great houses of Westeros have chosen sides and are marching their armies to war. And don't forget about naval power. Corlys Velaryon, the Sea Snake, has finally finished fixing his boat. And for Team Green, Tywin Lannister has gone over to the Free Cities to hire their navy. They're led by a woman, Admiral Lohar, who before she agrees to sail with him, wants to fight him in a mud wrestling match. So all these forces are heading to Harrenhal for an epic season finale battle. Except it seems they've decided to save the battle for season 3. So that's where House of the Dragon Season 2 comes to an end. If you liked this recap, hit that subscribe button for more of the best recaps of TV and movies.